Okay, I would like to share with you a story called Lou Gehrig, The Luckiest Man, written by David A. Adler, illustrated by Terry Widener. I chose this book for a couple reasons. One, that first week of school, we talked a little bit about what the word perseverance means, and even when things are challenging, how we don't give up and we kind of work through those frustrations and challenges and just keep trying. So, the other reason I chose the book is because we've been talking about making inferences and predictions and thinking about what characters are doing and what they're saying and what kind of conclusions we can draw from those actions and thoughts. And so that goes along well with this book. And also, it's just a great story about a really famous man named Lou Gehrig. Some of you might be familiar with him, but he was a famous baseball player. So here we go. Lou Gehrig, the luckiest man. 1903 was a year of great beginnings. Henry Ford sold his first automobile, and the Wright brothers made the first successful flight in an airplane. In baseball, the first World Series was played. The team, later known as the Yankees, moved from Baltimore to New York, and on June 19th, 1903, Henry Louis Gehrig was born. He would become one of the greatest baseball players in history. Lou Gehrig was born in the Yorkville section of New York City. It was an area populated with poor immigrants like his parents, Heinrich and Christina Gehrig, who had come to the United States from Germany. So just so you understand, boys and girls, this story right now it's going back to 1903 and in that decade, or excuse me, in that century, okay? It's a long time ago. Look at the pictures. You can infer that even if you didn't have the text, you could infer that this was written about a time long ago. Christina Gehrig had great hopes for her son Lou. She dreamed that he would attend college and become an accountant or an engineer. She insisted that he study hard. Through 8 years of grade school, Lou didn't miss a single day. Lou's mother thought games and sports were a waste of time, but Lou loved sports. He got up early to play the games he loved: baseball, soccer, and football. He played until it was time to go to school, and in high school, Lou was the star on his school's baseball team. After high school, Lou Gehrig went to Columbia University. Friends, I'm going to try to get in this picture a little bit better here. There we go. So he went to the university. He was on the baseball team there too. And on April 26, 1923, a scout for the New York Yankees watched him play. Lou hit 2 long home runs in that game. And soon after that, he was signed to play for the Yankees. The Yankees offered Lou a $1,500 bonus to sign, plus a good salary. So stop and think for a minute. That was a long, long time ago. $1,500 right now would definitely not be comparable to what professional sports players are earning. So it puts that into perspective just a little bit. All right. His family needed the money. Lou quit college and joined the Yankees. Lou's mother was furious. She was convinced that he was ruining his life. So stop and think for a minute. Why did Lou's mom think he was ruining his life? Think about earlier what the author stated about what she wanted for her son and her goals for him, and how his decision now maybe didn't fit with the goals that she had for him about going to college. On June 1st, 1925, the Yankee manager sent Lou to bat for the shortstop. The next day, Lou played in place of first baseman Wally Pipp. Those were the first 2 games in what would become an amazing record. For the next 14 years, Lou Gehrig played in 2,130 consecutive Yankee games. That means he never missed a game. The boy who never missed a day of grade school became a man who never missed a game. Thinking about what that tells us about Lou Gehrig and his character and his the things that he works hard for. What can you infer about him? Lou Gehrig played despite stomach aches, fevers, a sore arm, back pains, and broken fingers. Lou's constant play earned him the nickname Iron Horse. All he would say about his amazing record was, "That's just the way I am." Inferring, what does that tell you about Lou? Even though he had all those struggles, he worked through those. Lou was shy and modest, but people who watched him knew just how good he was. In 1927, excuse me, Lou's teammate Babe Ruth hit 60 home runs, the most hit up to that time in one season. But it was Lou Gehrig who was selected that year by the baseball writers as the American League's most valuable player. He was selected again as the league's MVP in 1936. Even though he didn't hit as many home runs, he was still awarded the MVP. Thinking about why that might be. Think of all that he accomplished. Then, during the 1938 baseball season, and for no apparent reason, Lou Gehrig stopped hitting. One newspaper reported that Lou was swinging as hard as he could, but when he hit, the ball didn't go anywhere. Lou exercised. He took extra batting practice. He even tried changing the way he stood and held his bat. He worked hard during the winter of 1938 and watched his diet. But the following spring, Lou's playing was worse. Time after time, he swung at the ball and missed. He had trouble fielding, and he even had problems off the field. In the clubhouse, he fell down when he was getting dressed. So, I'm going to ask a question. So your question is, how did Lou deal with his batting problems? What does that tell us about him as a person? You know, what did he do when he was faced with that challenge? Did he give up? What kinds of things did he do to deal with the problems he was having? So that's just a stop and think for you. I could go back into the text for evidence. I'll give you an example. I know that he's super hardworking, okay, and he doesn't give up because even faced with the challenge, he exercised, he watched his diet, he tried all sorts of things to overcome that problem. Some people said Yankee manager Joe McCarthy should take Lou out of the lineup, but McCarthy refused. He had great respect for Lou and said, Gehrig plays as long as he wants to play. But Lou wasn't selfish. On May 2nd, 1939, he told Joe McCarthy, I'm benching myself for the good of the team. When reporters asked why he took himself out, Lou didn't say he felt weak or how hard it was for him to run. Lou made no excuses. He just said that he couldn't hit and he couldn't field. Thinking about how that might make him feel at this point, boys and girls, it's got to be very frustrating for him. I would think if I put myself in his shoes. On June 13th, 1939, Lou went to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, close to us, to be examined by specialists. On June 19th, his 36th birthday, they told Lou's wife, Eleanor, what was wrong. He was suffering from amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, a deadly disease that affects the central nervous system. That means the brain. So thinking about, he had a medical problem, why all those things were happening to him. Lou stayed with the team, but he didn't play. He was losing weight. His hair was turning gray. He didn't have to be told he was dying. He knew it. I don't have long to go, he told a teammate. Lou loved going to the games, being in the clubhouse and sitting with his teammates. Before each game, Lou brought the Yankee lineup card to the umpire at home plate. A teammate or a coach walked with him to make sure he didn't fall. Whenever Lou came onto the field, the fans stood up and cheered for brave Lou Gehrig. Kind of warms your heart, doesn't it? Kind of makes me sad and happy at the same time. But Yankee fans and the team wanted to do more. They wanted Lou to know how deeply they felt about him, so they made July 4th, 1939, Lou Gehrig Appreciation Day at Yankee Stadium. Many of the players from the 1927 Yankees, perhaps the best baseball team ever, came to honor their former teammate. There was a marching band and gifts. Many people spoke, too. Fiorello LaGuardia, the mayor of New York City, told Lou, "You are the greatest prototype of good sportsmanship and citizenship." When the time came for Lou to thank everyone, he was too moved to speak, but the fans wanted to hear him and chanted, "We want Gehrig! We want Gehrig!" Dressed in his Yankee uniform, Lou Gehrig walked slowly to the array of microphones. He wiped his eyes, and with his baseball cap in his hands, his head down, he spoke slowly. So that's where your inferring comes in, boys and girls. Using those clues from the text, he's wiping his eyes, his head is down a little bit, thinking about how he might be feeling. "Fans," he said, "for the past 2 weeks, you have been reading about a bad break I got. Yet today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth." It was a courageous speech. Lou didn't complain about his terrible illness. Instead, he spoke of his many blessings and of the future. Sure, I'm lucky, he said when he spoke of his years in baseball. Sure, I'm lucky, he said again when he spoke of his fans and his family. Lou spoke about how good people had been to him. He praised his teammates, he thanked his parents and his wife, whom he called a tower of strength. The more than 60,000 fans in the Yankee Stadium stood to honor Lou Gehrig. His last words to them and to the many thousands more sitting by their radios listening were, "So I close in saying that I might have had a bad break, but I have an awful lot to live for. Thank you." Lou stepped back from the microphones and wiped his eyes. The stadium crowd let out a tremendous roar, and Babe Ruth did what many people must have wanted to do that day. He threw his arms around Lou Gehrig and gave him a great warm hug. The band played the song "I Love You Truly," and the fans chanted, "We love you, Lou." When Lou Gehrig left the stadium later that afternoon, he told a teammate, "I'm going to remember this day for a long time." Here's your question. Always stopping and thinking. In what ways did Lou Gehrig show courage and perseverance throughout his life? Thinking about that, he never missed a game. He always came even when he was feeling horrible. He never stopped trying. So if I were to take a little bit more time, I could go back into the text for evidence to support that he was courageous and showed perseverance. In December 1939, Lou Gehrig was voted into the Baseball Hall of Fame, and the Yankees retired his uniform. No one else on the team would ever wear the number 4. It was the first time a Major League Baseball team did that to honor one of its players. Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia thought Lou's courage might inspire some of the city's troubled youth to be courageous. He offered Lou a job working with former prisoners as a member of the New York City Parole Commission. Lou had many opportunities to earn more money, but he believed his job would enable him to do something for the city that had given him so much. So it's kind of paying that forward and giving back to your community. Within a little more than a year, Lou had to leave his job. He was too weak to keep working. He stayed at home, unable to do the simplest tasks. Lou had many visitors. He didn't speak to them of his illness or of dying. When he saw one friend visibly upset by the way he looked, Lou told him not to worry. "I'll gradually get better," he said. In cards to his friends, Lou wrote, "We have much to be thankful for." Still kept that positive attitude even through all of his struggles. By the middle of May 1941, Lou hardly left his bed. Then on Monday, June 2nd, 1941, just after 10 o'clock at night, Lou Gehrig died. He was 37 years old. On June 4th, the Yankee game was canceled because of rain. Some people thought it was fitting that the Yankees didn't play. This was the day of Lou Gehrig's funeral. At the funeral, the minister announced that there would be no speeches. "We need none," he said, "because you all knew him." That seemed fitting, too, for the modest Lou Gehrig. So that is Lou Gehrig, the luckiest man alive.